Ray McKenzie is such an interesting guy, and he's got a really cool story about deciding to, in his words, deciding to promote himself and being open to the opportunity because of the life he wanted to create for himself. And then from there, he was open to the opportunity of creating another business off of the one he created. Such an interesting guy, and he's got so many cool little things in here that are great little nuggets. We need to come up with a better word than nuggets. We need to come up with an atomic word for nuggets. And you should really like him in spite of the fact that he's never had a cup of coffee in his life. So don't hold that against him. But you guys listen up and take some notes, and I hope you enjoy it. Everybody, thanks for joining us today. Today we got Ray McKenzie with us, and Ray, I'll let you give yourself your own magnificent intro.
Okay, sounds good. So thanks for having me on. Ray McKenzie. I'm founder and CEO of a company named Starting Point, which is a workflow management SaaS platform for professional services companies. I'm also founder and managing director of Red Beach Advisors, which is a management consultancy firm in areas of cybersecurity, cloud computing, and IT. And then, a board member of a couple of different charter schools. I'm a private investor as well in a couple of different areas. And so I'm active. I'm busy.
You're busy.
And then married 4 kids as well. So my oldest son is 22, my middle son 15, and 2 13-year-old twins, 1 boy, 1 girl. So
That's so much. The fact that you're here for even, hopefully I'll get you for an hour. If I get half that time, I'll be really excited. So,
no worries.
That's a lot. That's a lot. So I've got 3 kids at home, much younger than yours. Real quickly, the twins.
Yeah.
Tell me what that day was like when you were like, hey, you got a fourth, but a
Oh,
third.
yeah.
But what I mean is a fourth.
So this is an interesting story. So I think I was in Louisville, Kentucky at the time on business, and my wife called and she was having just a routine, pregnancy checkup, and we had already had 2, and we're like, okay, we're gonna have a third, and then next thing you know, she calls and she's like, hey, are you in your office? Blah 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 blah, and I'm like, yeah, I'm in my office. She's like, close the door, and I like close the door. She tells me, I just put the phone down, like, because the whole plan of family building immediately goes out the window. So it's
Yeah.
like, hey, we've got the SUV, we've got the extra car seat, we've got the strollers ready to go. We've got all that stuff. We both have SUVs that fit, the family that we're expecting to have. And then
Yeah.
next thing you know, you have to go get the extra long Suburban, and you got to get the triple stroller because we had 3 under 2 at that time. And so all the plans went out the window. But it's worked out well. My wife has done an amazing job in raising them, and while I've had my career and stuff like that. So, it was just interesting. It was an interesting day.
But yeah. So my wife showed me a video when she told me that we were having a third, and it was complete silence on my end. I just turned around and stared at her. She just kept saying, like, just giving her this look. So that question came from a place of me just seeing and feeling that whole, like, hey, guess what? Are you sitting down? Like,
Yeah,
it's
so
real.
all of your real life planning immediately goes out the window. So
Yeah.
yeah. Look at your face. You're still shocked.
Yeah. Like, I'm trying to, like, put myself in that swimming pool and trying to feel what that water feels like when you're just like, oh my God. Because that's a
Yeah.
big thing. Well, and that's with all the things that, we were talking about this just a second ago. Like, we have this idea of how things are going to go, and it doesn't always go that way. And then it's just, how do you deal with it, and how do you make the most of it, and how do you enjoy the part when it's good? And I had to get that reminder the other day. When it's like, you think all these bad things are going on around you, and the
Yeah.
reality is you have way more good things in your life than you could ever possibly be thankful for.
Oh,
But
for sure.
you're just focused on the wrong thing sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Always, I think having a true perspective of kind of your life, the problems you have as a person, and kind of not panicking and being able to adapt.
Yeah.
will help relieve a lot of stress and anxiety on people, just to say things will be okay.
Yeah. That's well, thank you for coming on the podcast today. Like that, that was a podcast in and of itself.
Thanks for having
I
me.
love it. I love it. All right. So I mean, you were into so many things. I don't even know where to begin, but let's start with this. I don't know where to begin, but I'm going to begin here. When did you realize that this was the life for you? That starting, running, owning, operating your own businesses, being the tip of the spear. When did you know that was for you?
You know what's interesting is it throughout my at the early part of my career, my goal was to continue to climb the corporate ladder. And that
Hmm.
was continue to work and climb the corporate ladder, climb it, work, and then eventually go from director to VP to senior VP to COO to CEO, and then I've got this glorious life. I'm in magazines at the age of 55, 60 years old, and I'm speaking at conferences and things like that. That's kind of how I envisioned, my life to be. Um, and then I'd say kind of a pivotal point for me was my oldest son started to play a lot of basketball. Okay.
Hmm.
And we talked about the kids, we talked about the family, things like that. And we've got 4 kids. My oldest son started to play a lot of basketball. And really, in doing that, it took a lot of time. And with that, the time to give him the opportunity to play basketball or sports at the highest level also required my ability to have the flexibility to get him to where he needed to be. My wife was dealing with the other 3 kids. I've got my oldest son. It was thinking like, okay, one, how do I kind of create the time I need to spend with my son to be able to get him to be able to maximize his abilities? That's
Yeah.
one. And then two, then that led me into, if time's so important, how and I want to be the boss, why don't I just create a company to be the CEO and give myself that promotion? And at the time, I was like, I didn't quite know how this was going to work out. So this kind of a different story was, I was working for a company here in the Los Angeles area. Um, I had flown back from a business trip in Europe. I took a day off. I went to lunch at a nearby beach by myself. Next thing you know, I'm having lunch with strangers sitting at a restaurant, and we're just kind of talking. And I'm thinking, like, how do you afford the ability to be out here Tuesday at a 1 o'clock carefree, like it's whatever? And I was like, well, and they're asking me, hey, what do you do for a living? And I'm telling them, and then I'm asking them what they're doing for a living. And they run different types of firms, businesses, companies, things like that. And so I left that lunch saying I want to start my own firm or company, and didn't have any idea what it was going to be. 2 weeks later, I got calls from 2 CEOs saying, hey, Ray, can you help us inside of our businesses? That
Yeah.
led into starting a consulting company.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know how it was going to happen. All I knew was I left lunch that Tuesday at 2:30 and said I'm going to start my own company. And then once said it a couple of times, then I got a couple calls the next 2 weeks, and then I haven't looked back from there. So that's kind of how it started.
Yeah.
um that's kind of how it's gone, and then kind of stuck with it, and it's afforded me the ability to take care of my family, work with amazing people, with amazing companies on amazing projects, and then obviously lead me down the path of being a entrepreneur 2 times 3 times over and
Yeah.
build businesses.
Yeah, that's all. You know what? One of the there's two things you said in there. One, which I'm stealing from you, is I decided to give myself the promotion, which is that's perfect, right? That's a good way to describe it. And and then the second thing is that, and I think this is this is true, is that the things that you want are out there. You just have to be open to receiving them in a lot of
Yeah,
ways,
yeah.
and repeating to yourself that you want them, and knowing that you're looking for them, and just having your eyes open. The opportunities are there. It's just a matter of is if you're going to see it and take it.
Yeah, and a lot of people have opportunities that pass them almost every day,
Yep.
and they're not even looking for the opportunities. or they're talking themselves out of taking the opportunity or pursuing the opportunity, which is, hey, somebody asked me if I could just go do this. And they're like, no, 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 I don't have time in my day to do that, such. I don't have time. I don't have the opportunity. And even if it's the thing that a person really, really wants, they automatically shut it down before they even try.
That's
And
right.
so if you talk to me for too long, I'll probably talk everybody into starting a new company or business. I think it's something that almost everybody wants to do. And sometimes people don't have people to push them to say, go try it. Just try it and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, that what's also kind of interesting about your journey is that often the risk, right, the perceived risk, is what people are afraid of. Like, oh, well,
Yeah.
what if this and what if that? But that there was never even a question for you. I mean, that wasn't part of your mindset. It didn't sound like.
No, it's a question. I think definitely that
Okay.
risk is there. You always weigh what happens if this happens versus this. Um, for me, my thought process was always around I built a good corporate network of individuals and friends that I think I can rely on. And at the worst, I have this thing over here called a resume. I can start to just blast out a ton of places and see how things
That's right.
go.
That's right.
So my thought was if I step away from this corporate opportunity and I have these two clients, the consulting clients, and I have them for 6 months, that gives me 6 months to work with. Okay. Then, if I need to go get a job, I can start to make phone calls to my friends, my corporate individuals that I know, and start to say, hey, I'm looking for an opportunity. Can you point me in the right direction? And then the backup to that was, hey, I have this resume over here that I can go blast out to companies. And so I did, you always weigh risk in terms of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. I never suggest that somebody just quit your job and just go start a new company without thinking through what that risk or what that plan looks like over the next 3, 6, 9, 12, 18 months.
Yeah.
Especially based on what your family is. If you're married with 3 kids, you have a different risk tolerance that you can afford to have versus a person who is single, no kids, able
Yeah.
to, move and shake as they want. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was definitely a challenge. I thought through it and ran it by the family and was like, hey, I'm gonna take a shot, and we took a shot.
There you go. So you, how long between the first business and the second business? Like, what was your thought process? When did it fall in your lap? Was it something where you were like, okay, here's another problem? Like, what was the
Um,
process there?
the first business to the second business starting point is based on my consulting firm. So it
Okay.
took probably about 7 years for it to kind of fall into my lap, which was, I needed a tool, I needed some software that could help me kind of run my consulting firm and run it easily. And then be able to kind of get everybody on the same page from workflow perspective. And I couldn't find one software that could do it. And the one software I was familiar with that could do it was outside of the size of my company's budget. So it was
Okay.
for, companies that are Fortune 1000 companies and small and larger, for instance. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm a small to mid-sized firm. I don't have that budget to spend on that software. Uh, and I've seen companies go under by spending a lot of money on software that just doesn't provide the return and the investment.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, let me start trying to build a software that solves our problem. And in building that, that's kind of what led to the second business because I started building it. Then I started showing it to other companies, and other companies were like, this is something we could use. And then I was like, well, let's turn this software into its own company. And there
There you
you
go.
go. And that's kind of how it worked.
Yeah, I had a conversation 2 days ago. Very similar thing. Somebody that had started a business and realized that software didn't exist for what they needed, and so they ended up building it. And they actually sold off the first company and then just focused on the software
Yeah.
because it worked so well that way. So All right. So between the two of them, which one is your priority right now?
The software company.
Yeah.
Software company definitely is a priority. I'd say, I've got clients on the consulting side. I've got consultants that are working on engagements and projects. So, that's kind of a self-sufficient lifestyle type of business. The software, since it's relatively newer, we started building it in 2020, launched it in 2022. Um, kind of in market for almost 2 years now.
Hmm.
That's kind of the growth engine. So that's kind of where a lot of the efforts are. Um,
Okay.
I love to work, so hours aren't too crazy of a problem. I mean, I think we just like we said, you woke up at 4. I'm usually up at 5. I
Yeah.
usually work till with a few breaks, maybe 8, 9 o'clock, and then do it all again the next day. And it's fun to me. It's fun.
I I do I agree with that. I think there is something about it that is um people's that whole like if you love what you do you never work a day in your life, but when it's interesting to you and you're solving a problem and you're helping people, I think there is a lot of energy that comes from that.
Yeah, and I also think it's um, you know, building the life you want to live. Which is, I think we all have, as we grow up, we all have ideas of the life we want to live, whether it may be somebody's able to just live in an RV and travel across the country from place to place and, go watch college football, go watch your favorite college football games in your favorite cities and favorite stadiums and go travel around. Sometimes it could be, hey, I want to live in a specific city, or state, whether it's, downtown Manhattan or downtown Los Angeles, and then other people want to live, in farms or in rural places. And it's all about building the life you want to live and being happy with that. And I think if people are on that path to doing that, you'll find happiness in that.
Yeah,
I
man.
think I think when you're not building that life you want to live, or not, maybe it's pursuing passion, if people want to call it that. Um, I think people struggle with that. I think a lot of people do. you
Yeah.
know and, and
Yeah.
maybe that's called the rat race to people. um maybe people have different interpretations for it, but I think if people are building the life they want to live, whether it be, I'm going to work 20 years, I'm going to build a vacation home in this place, and then I'm going to move to my vacation home, I think people find satisfaction in that. Versus some
Yeah.
people are like, I don't want to work 20 years, I want to work 5 years, and I want to do what I need to do. I just think it's all about building the life you want to live, and finding happiness in that, whatever that may be, and it's different for everybody.
Yeah, I think I'll probably butcher this to some degree. I heard a quote the other day about happiness and joy. That like don't look for happiness; it's a destination, but look for joy because that's what happens in the middle of trying to get wherever you're going.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's apt and that's true, I believe.
Yeah,
you know
yeah. So, so let's go back to the original consulting firm. Let's dig into that a little bit. What type of consulting were you doing? How were you helping people? What's kind of the core business there?
so Red Beach Advisors was created to, as a management consulting firm, focused on strategy, operations, and digital modernization for companies. Okay.
Okay.
And my career was focused primarily in cybersecurity and IT companies and cloud computing companies. And in the strategic side of the business was all focused on, corporate strategy, business strategy, market strategy, and go to market strategy. Okay, so essentially taking, your company, your products and your services, and saying who wants to buy them and how do you get in front of them as best as possible to where you have messages that resonate. Then, obviously, a large part of my career from there was operations and process and procedure and building scalability with inside businesses. And so, you take the strategy and you have to execute the strategy. And you have to have some process around it and procedures around it to make sure it actually flourishes within the business. And so that's where the operational component came into the business. And then the third part was digital modernization, because you have a lot of companies that are they function off of let's do things how we've always done things. And that's
Hmm.
not always the most efficient way to do things. And if you implement a new strategy and you have new process, sometimes the tools, the software, the way you're doing things don't accurately fit where you're trying to go. And so, those were the three pillars of the business. And that's kind of what we were doing for companies, and
Yeah.
trying to walk them along the lines of saying, hey, this is your strategy. This is the new strategy. This is who you need and how you need to execute this within the business. And then these are the tools that you need to actually move this forward. And so we
Okay.
did that. We still do it today. Obviously, we have some very, very large Fortune 1000 companies. We also work with some SMBs and mid market companies too. And then we also do some public sector work as well.
Okay. So, has that been pretty consistent? Like you started with that sort of business plan and that's maintained itself throughout the life of the business to this point? Or have you had to make some changes and some redirections
Oh
along
gosh,
the way?
changes and redirections for sure. Like it sounds
Yeah.
good now. It's- yeah. Oh, what I just said sounded real good right now.
Yeah.
But when I launched a business in 2014, 2015, it was okay. I was doing a bit of strategy and operational work, but then I was also working with a lot of small to mid-sized businesses. Um, and that fluctuated quite a bit because some of those small to medium-sized businesses they want the strategy but they still want to do things the way they've always done things. And
Right.
I've learned that there's two key questions that we ask when we're finding clients or looking for clients. It's one, do you know you need help?
Love it.
And then two, are you willing to accept the help and make change inside the business? Because a lot of people will come and say, gosh, yeah, I need help. I need help doing this. I need help doing that. But then once you help them, they're very resistant to change or very resistant to making adjustments inside the business to see a better outcome. And if you don't have that, you're not going to have a good consulting engagement. And that's pretty much for any consultant across almost any organization. You're spending time you're spending time with companies, you're spending time with people, you want to lend your expertise, you want to say this is something that you can do to help your business and move it forward, and I can show you kind of incrementally how this is going to help over time. And people will be like, yo, that sounds great, that sounds great, that sounds fantastic. And then next thing you know, you're like, well, you need to change doing this each day, and you need to bring in this person or you need to adjust this person's role. And they're like, "Oh, I don't know if I want to do that."
That sounds hard.
And then next thing you know, you're like, "Well, what? You got to choose one. You got to choose.
Yeah,
You want to stay where you're at, or you want to change. And say, I want to move forward." And that's really the dilemma inside of consulting companies for the most part. Now, you still have that even for the very large consulting companies. You pay somebody to come in and they'll give you a 100-page manual of strategies of things you do, and they hand it off to your company, and then it never gets implemented.
yeah.
And then you look back 24 months later and you're like, well, we did all this work 2 years ago and nobody ever did anything about it. So I think that lends towards having a good consulting practice.
For sure. One thing, and I don't want to obviously put words in your mouth here, but something that I felt was that when you said, "Do you know that you need help, and will you make the changes once you receive the information?" That to me feels like that it truly mattered to you that change happened for these people. That and it wasn't just I'll give you a book and you're going to
Yeah,
pay me for this book, and if you need something just give me a call. That seems like to me that feels like it really mattered that they were in it with you because it's a partnership, right? Is
yeah.
that how it feels for you?
I
Yeah.
mean, very much so. I think one of the reason we've been able to kind of be in business or have such a good engagements and work with great people is that you do have to take pride in trying to drive value for your clients and customers.
Hmm.
Like you do have to care about having results, and you
Yeah.
do want to see them succeed because consulting. primarily is a word of mouth practice. Like, hey, I talked to this person, and this person told me about this person, and this person led me to you. And if you derive value with the first person will say, this person helped me do this, and then I brought them in, and then this person helped me do this, and I brought them in. And so you do want to care about delivery, you want to care about value, you want to care about consistency, you want to care about the polish and the work that you do and execute on. I think it's
Yeah,
extremely important.
for sure. For sure. Man, that's all those things you're talking about. I mean, and I kind of had that when you were talking in the beginning about your journey of like, I'm going to get this job and then I'm going to get the next promotion. Like I did that same thing, right? I had that
Yeah.
same thought, like I'm working to move my way up to, whatever the top was for me. And I'd worked at some, a lot of companies, different sizes, and we would have people come in and give us, all of this information about how to, hire people or how to run, this particular process over here. And it really was a little bit of seagull management, right? They'd fly in and shit on everybody and fly off. And then you're left to figure out how to, and you need to have buy-in across the company. You got to have buy-in from the top coming down. So if the
Mhm.
people at the top aren't going to hold everyone accountable to make the changes and follow up, then it was all for fun at the end of
Yeah,
the day, you
yeah,
know?
definitely. It's definitely a challenge. I think one of the things I think I've been good at is learning how to quickly develop positive relationships with people.
Hmm.
So positive rapport, positive relationships, so that when we are having a conversation, it's not just me flying in saying, "Oh, you're doing this bad, you're doing this bad, you're doing this bad, do this, and then I'll be back in 3 weeks to check on it." It's like you said, it's a partnership.
Yeah.
To where we're working together to see this outcome play itself out and show some benefit inside the business or for your company or for your organization. Um, I think whenever you come in from an outside role, it's always a little adversarial to a certain extent because people are like, "Whoa, what's going to happen?" I mean, everybody's watched the movies where they're like, "Hey, the Bobs come in and they're like, so
Office
what do you
space. That's
do?"
right.
They're like, "What do you do?" And then they're like, "Oh, I don't know what's going to happen," but it's more so like, I want to make your life easier.
Yeah,
If we make your life easier and you show some more success, you're able to continue to get those promotions or move forward or have a better kind of career or start your own company versus just staying in the role you're at, just kind of working the hamster wheel of just every day, just things aren't getting better, things aren't improving, and declining performance. So my goal when I come in is one, develop a good relationship with people, let them know obviously I'm here to help them and work with them and move things forward with them.
yeah,
And as long as we have that approach, typically things have worked out great.
yeah, yeah. And certainly I've worked with people that in the past that just that it's anything that was change was threat, and
Well,
they just wanted the status quo, and you're going to come across that from time to time.
I mean, changes, depending upon who you're talking to, change is rough. I mean, there's people that'll get up and just leave in a day and move, pack all their stuff up, and go to a new environment. And then there's people who literally never move out of their hometown.
Yeah,
And so it changes, and everybody has a different tolerance for it, along with
for
risk.
sure.
So, I think some of us who have stepped out on our own, we have a higher tolerance for risk, higher tolerance for change, and people call us crazy.
That's
Um,
right.
Other people, they don't have that tolerance and they don't have that risk, and some people we call those people crazy.
That's
So
right.
it goes both ways. It really goes both ways.
That's right. Yeah, and my joke I'll make is that if there's not enough change in my life, I'll break something, so I have to fix it. Like I'll just right, like I need chaos. Uh, so let's touch real briefly on the software side, right? So let's
Yeah.
talk about how that dovetails into what with the consulting business, and what the purpose of that is and how that helps customers.
Yeah, so we starting point was created because I needed a workflow management and customer operations platform for my consulting firm. So I wanted all of my consulting clients to be able to log into an interface to be able to see our engagements, see the alignment and the goals, and then have one single point of contact for the organization. Okay. Then
Mm-hmm.
I needed all of my consultants across the United States to be able to log in, manage their engagements, manage their goals, manage the customer relationship in one place. And then for me, as kind of the rainmaker of the firm, being able to log in at any time and say, hey, I want to see everything that's happening, how these engagements are moving forward. If I'm going to call one of my clients, I need to be up to date with everything that's happening with them. And I didn't want to always have to say, send me an email on Monday of all the things that are happening, send me an email on Friday of everything that's happening within my firm. So then I've got to go over these reports, typical reports from consultants is what's happening. And then I
Mm-hmm.
didn't never wanted to get blindsided by a client.
Yeah.
That's a big thing, which is my clients say, hey, we sent an email here and never got a response. Or, hey, we're not seeing the performance here that we want. What's next? I wanted to have that awareness and that visibility and transparency. And so then as we started to kind of build the software just for Red Beach advisors, started showing it to other people. And
Mm-hmm.
they were like, wow, this is something we could use because it's easy to use. And so we kept building features, functionality into the platform to work for all the businesses because obviously we have a narrow view because our firm is ran a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of where the software came from. And so now with Starting Point, you know, professional services firms are able to have an interface that looks like their company and feels like their company. And then it allows their clients to log in and manage the engagements and all of the communication. It allows their consultants to log in and manage their multiple clients, engagements, goals, questions from clients, files as well. And then from an executive point of view, we're able to log in to see everything that's happening within the firm. And then it can be started and fired up within 20 minutes and customized within 45 minutes.
That's awesome. That's really
Yeah.
cool. So what's been how many installations do you have? How many different companies right now are using Starting Point?
So as of this morning, we're up to 217 customers over the past 19 months.
That's incredible.
So it's yeah, I'd like to say yes. I mean, I'd love to say I'd love to have 1,000 customers. But 217 is it's a good number. I mean, it's progressively been building over time and time and time and time, and we've just kind of slowly taken the route of getting a lot of feedback from prospects and customers and clients, wrapping that into the product, and then trying to show it to more and more people. And
Yeah.
as we're having, more and more clients, more and more meetings, we're driving all of that feedback and value back into our product. So, we're growing at a pretty good rate right now. We want to do it the right way. We don't necessarily want the wheels to fall off a lot.
Right.
Um, but things are good. I mean, we started with an offering that was for, companies that may be 1 to 5 employees inside
Yep.
of a firm, so a real small firm. And now we've kind of grown to focus on those firms that are 20 to 200 employees.
Hmm.
And then we have some firms that are much larger, some companies that are much larger that are using our software. And
Yeah.
so, as we keep growing and we adding functionality and listening to our customers, hopefully we'll keep growing.
So with and going back with the consulting and then with the software, do you have certain verticals that you concentrate on or that have been you've naturally sort of just leaned into, or is it all over the place?
Gosh, I'd say, when I started the business, professional services was a wide ranging lane of different things that were going on. And so we were a little bit building towards everybody and everything. And then, obviously, you're getting a lot of product feedback. in terms of
Mhm.
add this for us, add this here, add this in education, add this in healthcare, add this in public sector, add this in financial services, add this for consulting firms or add this for IT companies. And then it was like, okay, we're not getting anywhere in terms of like people
Yeah.
people saying this exactly solves our problem. And then we
Yeah.
narrowed it down to just primarily start to focus on consulting companies. And
Okay.
then as we started focusing on consulting companies, that allowed us to branch into financial services consulting firms. And then it also has started to help us branch into educational firms too. Now, we do have some other companies in some other auxiliary areas like healthcare and, um, workforce management and things like that. But kind of our core is consulting, whether it be management consulting or financial services consulting, and then kind of going off into financial services and education. That's kind of where we're starting to see more and more traction.
Okay. As far as growth strategies, and again for either business, what are things that you've really found some success with? What are some things that you might be excited about doing next?
Um, Growth strategy wise, I think being on platforms like this obviously helps, because we're
Yep.
able to kind of tell our story. We're able to kind of share kind of where we've come from, where we're going, and where we're trying to go. So obviously, thank you for having us on. And then from there, it's, uh, we've had significant success with building landing pages
Mm-hmm.
that speak directly towards targeted industries we're after,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and telling a story that specifically speaks to them.
Yeah.
That works extremely well. And then you pair that um, with, email marketing. Email marketing still is highly effective. I
100%.
think email marketing works definitely better than, Google ads, Facebook ads, Twitter ads, social media ads. Um, and I think if you have those two things together and you're telling the right story to your right audience,
Mm-hmm.
you can have some success. Building one web page that kind of speaks to everybody is a little difficult.
For sure.
Uh, and that may not you're probably going to have less success rates. However, if you build specific landing pages that tell the story and a good story of value to your customers that you're talking to, and then you pair that with an email marketing campaign that's speaking directly to those people, I think you can have some success there.
Yeah. What how's the sales cycle for you? Are you finding that it's, days, weeks, months, not quite years, 19 months is, to put 200 businesses together. That's it's moving faster than years.
I mean, well, I think for consulting companies, there's a lot of companies that are small firms, and a lot of people are starting their own businesses. And we saw that over the pandemic. People were starting their own firms, starting their own companies, things like that. Um, for the picking up the customers was one thing. Satisfying them was a whole other thing to a certain extent.
Yeah,
Um,
true.
but we've been able to just try to focus on one, driving value in the product, and then driving value in the product and listen to our customers.
Okay. Yeah. And you're really, I would assume you're probably really leveraging your current database and your customers now to help, grow both businesses.
Um, the customers for the consulting firm are much larger than the customers for the software firm
Okay.
right now. Now,
Yeah.
hopefully, we get there. That'd be
Yeah.
fantastic. And if we can get there in 3 to 5 years, that's amazing. Um, but we do, because my consulting firm does eat our own dog food.
Yeah.
We are able to show it off to these. We are able to
Love it.
show it off to the larger clients. And then they're like, "Oh, what's this? What are you using?"
Yep.
And we will openly ask them for feedback on it, which is it's a tool that's proprietary that we built, and it's kind of where we're going with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. I love it. I love it. We eat our own dog food. I hadn't heard that in so long. I love it, man. I love it. This is great. That's great. Well, I really, really appreciate you taking the time to get together with us today. This has been really, really. It's been a great conversation. So many good little nuggets of information in here, and I love the story of you essentially, finding a problem, solving a problem, and then turning that into another business and another way to help people and to, like you said, to live the life you want to live. So hats off to you, my man.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think, I mean, if obviously anybody's able to reach out. If anybody wants to talk, we can talk entrepreneurs, struggles, challenges, things we went through. There's been a lot we've gone through. The 2 years we were building the software before we even launched it to market, a lot of changes, a lot of pivots, a lot of adjustments, a lot of lessons learned. However, I can help people. I'm always willing to talk to them and take some time and kind of be share kind of our experience as to what
Yeah,
we've been through,
yeah,
and
that's awesome. How can people get in touch with you? What's the best way for them to find you?
kind of the best way I would say would be LinkedIn. So Raymond McKenzie, you just look me up on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way. I get a ton of LinkedIn messages, but
Yeah.
LinkedIn is probably the most functional way to do it. Uh, yeah, that's probably the best medium.
All right, man. Well,
Yeah,
thank
definitely.
you.
All
Thank
right.
you. I really appreciate it. Great to
No,
meet you. Great
thank
to
you,
talk to you.
and thank you, and definitely a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for having me on and reaching out, and definitely I'll do all the promotion on my side too. So, and if you're ever looking for guests, let me know. I definitely can point you in the right direction.
Oh, for sure. We'll talk. We'll talk for sure. I always am looking for, referral opportunities and people that would be, that like to do this kind of stuff. So I'm always wide open for that.
All right, sounds good, my man. Well, thank you
All right,
for having
buddy.
me. Cheers.
Thank you, Ray. Be good. Bye.